Hi, everyone. I'm Bill Davis, and welcome to our daily show where we answer your tech questions live 7 days a week. Alexander Knight is our reader today. Alexander, what's our first question?
First question comes from the Philippines. Mickey Macachor is asking, what's new with Dante Virtual Soundcard 4.5 and what is DVS Pro?
Alex Lindsay's going to help you out. Alex?
We think the new Soundcard 4.5 will work in Sequoia. It hasn't been tested yet, but that is the theory that it's working. Some folks here, I think Alexander has played with it successfully. So we think that 4.5 is the update that we need to do that. If you haven't upgraded yet, I'd probably wait another month or two, let it settle into 4.51, and let everything kind of go there. But for those who are adventurous, that's the advantage there. For DVS Pro, there's a large increase in the number of channels, I think from 64 to 128 at the top end, but a lot of increase of the number of channels supported by DVS, as well as the number of flows, which I think has been increased at least twice, maybe 4 times. I have to look at it. I had the window open and then I shut it. Increase in flows, increase in channels, ability to be a clock leader. So those are all things that look pretty interesting.
Alexander?
Yeah, so I just wanted to confirm that because I've got the change log in front of me here, and it is official. It is Dante Virtual Soundcard is now supported on macOS 15 Sequoia, and like Alex said, in the addition to the increased channel counts from 64 to 128, it supports up to 96 kilohertz as well, which is pretty awesome. I haven't tested this, but obviously in the past I have mentioned that. When they didn't support it on the previous older versions, it had a lot of problems. DVS would just flat out fail on Sequoia on 15.2. So it's good to see that they finally jumped on this. Frankly, I'm kind of stunned. I didn't expect this update so soon. They're usually quite a bit slower than this. So macOS Sequoia has been out since September, but I thought it would have taken them another 6 months. And like Alex said, it might be good to test this on a machine if you just bought an M4 Mac Mini, put it through its paces, because I still don't believe Sequoia is fully ready for anything serious yet. So just be cautious. Make sure all your applications, all your plugins, everything is fully tested and fully supported by all your vendors.
Alex, you wanted to revisit?
This is the page I was missing. So here you have the Pro. So you have for 44 and 48, these are all the same. But instead of 64, you have 128. Instead of 32, you have 128 here at 96. And 8x8 at 192 goes to 16. Dante flows from 16 up to 64. Some higher latency available. Leader and unicast clock support, runs in virtual environments. It still doesn't, it sounds like they're trying to get to cloud, but still doesn't support cloud. So they're telling you to go to Dante Connect for that. So that's the DVS Pro. And it looks like a good update, and then it looks like DVS Pro is going to be very, very useful for a lot of us.
Excellent. Let's head to our next question.
Next one's from the QR code Francis Fry in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Has anyone on the panel successfully recorded independent audio tracks of 2 people in one room and a remote guest via Riverside? I can get independent video in through 2 Macs, but have not figured out independent audio context hybrid podcast.
Alex, do you know? Yeah, so I don't. So the question I have is: you have a remote guest via Riverside. The question is: are the 2 people in the one room remote? If they are, if they're not remote, if those 2 tracks are there, then you'd want to record them. You'd want to record them locally and then resync that up. So so if you're trying to. If the 2 people in the room, if you have access to those 2 people, then, or if they have a mixer or a, this is the kind of thing where if they had an interface like a MixPre 3 or a Zoom F3 or F6, they would be able to record those locally, then have them go into Riverside. What you'd end up with is a summed version in Riverside, but you still have those audio records that you could resync to the Riverside recording. I know it's a little bit more work there, but I do think that I don't think that you can get I think that they're both going to be summed. If you're asking for Riverside, I think it's designed to be simple, and I don't think it does stereo. I think it's designed for interviews, so I think it's going to sum anything that you put together there.
And there's so many inexpensive recording options that I can't imagine not double-ending anything I do with an interviewee.
Well, I mean,
really
you send stuff out. I mean, like we saw the MV7i. I've already thought of the MV7iX. You know, because there's a whole. Soon, Shure will have a whole just be MV7s. But I was thinking about it. If Shure just put there's a couple things. The next version of that. One thing is having a microphone with a micro SD card would be super useful, or just 64 megs of memory built into the. You don't even have to have the card; just have 64-bit because it's already got a USB connection. Right. Just let it record internally and then pull it off. You know, or
particularly if you can from remote just command it to start recording and then eventually send that file.
That was the second thing I was going to say. If you gave the users remote control. You would be, you know, and you could theoretically, there's a lot you could do with that. So I think that kind of thing is there. But I think that it, Francis said that I can get it summed audio in Riverside, but the editing capability in Riverside is so much better with independent audio. Right. And so, but I think that you should, again, if it's, the difficulty is the two people in that one room and whether they're coming in over Riverside. That's the part that I guess, are you editing? I guess the question is, are you editing in Riverside? Which is not something I've done. We use Riverside, but we pull it off and put it into another editor.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. All the remote voiceover work I do, I always record a high quality file here and immediately send it off to my client immediately after that. And there just doesn't seem to be any problem with that.
And Jack Cannon said, Francis, if you bring them into Riverside through two computers, you could get ISO audio. So that is true. You may end up with potentially some bad phasing there. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. You could have sync issues, phasing issues, and so on and so forth. But it does. Yeah, if you had two different computers and they were each delivering one person, that could work as well. He's right.
A lot of things to think about. Hopefully that was helpful, Francis. Next question.
From the QR code, Paul Kovacs in Elkhart, Indiana. Suggestions of office hours team to use Hyperdeck to record to. Have a mini HD Plus. What is the best format to use with an SSD? APFS, HFS Plus? Should I rely on SD cards instead? I was getting flashing record warnings when using a Samsung SSD with Atem ISO Extreme.
And Alexander himself is going to start us off. Alexander?
We always refer to Blackmagic's article. They keep this up to date. They have a recommended guide of SSD drives that you should be using with the ATEMs for ISO recording. Otherwise, you run the risk of these types of issues. So I wouldn't stray from that. But it's always a good idea to have backup records. Usually what I recommend is if you have a free HDMI output, is to take one of your HDMI outputs on your ATEM and run it into an external hardware or recorder, so you at least have a backup, something you can get at like a reasonably priced Atomos Ninja V, and that has a HDMI loop through, so you can pass that over to something else. But having some kind of backup is always a good idea. I've been bitten by record errors and record issues. I've lost work on the ATEM, so having some backup is a good idea.
Courtney Gooden.
Well, it kind of depends on several points in your question. I was confused a little bit because you asked about a mini HD Plus. There's the mini HD, which I have, which is not this one. This is the Studio HD Plus, and then there's the mini HD, which looks like that. And the mini HD only takes SD cards, and I think this one does as well. I don't think it takes internal SSDs. One thing, as Alexander said, use the recommended media that is recommended on Blackmagic's site to be compatible. Also, if your Samsung was giving you a flashing indicator while recording off of your Atem ISO Extreme, that's trying to record multiple channels of video simultaneously in compressed format. And so that's a much broader data stream than we're recording a single SDI or HDMI stream, which the Hyperdecks record at one time. So it will require much higher throughput and a faster drive to record off the Extreme than it does to record off the Hyperdeck. And it depends on what format you want to be recording in. If you're trying to record in 444 ProRes, you need something fairly fast with a good fast data rate. And as far as format goes, if you're going to stay strictly in the Apple world, HFS Plus should be fine for you. EXFAT is the way to go if you've got to move your discs or your media between different platforms. I would always suggest EXFAT because that way, if you get into trouble, you can give it to somebody that has a PC or a Linux machine and still be able to read it. If it's an HFS Plus, you're going to require it's a little bit more difficult to read those discs without software applications to read them. But like I say, get the media that's rated for the type of file that you want to record and the file speed, and test it before you use it to rely on.
Alex?
Yeah, you're going to want to use high performance drives. So again, we've talked a little bit about these. I have some Oyens. I built some of my own. Most of them, they're rated for much higher than what the Atem is going to deliver, and I only use the first half of the drive. So I calculate what it's going to take. I do it usually the way I recalculate it. There's probably ways to do it with math, but what I do is I plug it in and I record 10 minutes, and then I extrapolate from there how much it's going to use. I want to know in real world with the cameras connected, how much is it going to be, and I make sure that the drive that I have there is twice what I need. I find that the performance of drives drops dramatically after the first really 40% to be safe. And so that's the thing I look at. Of course, when you said Samsung, always make sure to give us the model. The 7s are not good. But most of them I've moved to building my own or buying ones that are really designed only for media production. So those are the Angel Birds, I want to say it's Oyen, but it's Oben. I have one here somewhere. Anyway, so both of those are, one is one I build with, and the other one is the one that I use that's all pre-built. But I build a lot of them from scratch, and I find that those ones I've been able to get higher performance for the same price. So some of them have big fans on them, and ribs and stuff like that, so that I am guaranteed that they're gonna work. So, but I would say that I haven't successfully used Samsung SSDs for long records off of an Atem Mini ever. I've always had problems. Like like all of them have had problems at some point in time where I lose some or part of. I lose frames. So I know that some of them may be rated as successful. I have not. I just personally have not been successful at that.
Courtney, do you have something real quick?
Yeah, just be careful in buying your media online. If you're buying from eBay, be forewarned that Samsung and SanDisk are, there's lots of counterfeit ones out there that look exactly like Samsung and SanDisk, and they claim to be, 1 terabyte cards, and they're really 256 gigabytes,
Never use SanDisk if it matters.
Yeah, never use SanDisk. Because it's so heavily pirated out there. And only buy from reputable dealers that are going to warranty it. Test it before you use it.
The pirated SanDisk could be an improvement. SanDisk is.
I doubt it. It may only.
I'm so bitter. I'm so
bitter
bitter about SanDisk. I can't. Yeah.
Another topic for another day. Don't forget your questions drive this show. And if you'd like to get your questions in, the simplest and easiest way is to scan the QR code that's on your screen right now. That is a link to askofficehours.global. That is something you can use anytime, anywhere. You don't have to be connected to anything. So it's the simplest way to get your questions into the queue every day. Askofficehours.global. Let's go on to our next question.
Peter Moore from Auckland, New Zealand. Will BMD release a new version of the popular Atem Mini series, which have 4K, 8K support soon? Any recommendations for switchers that do this now, Roland or Rhode maybe?
Alex, what do you think?
Again, no, I don't think so. I don't think they're going to do 4K because it's just that nobody's streaming in 4K except for us. There's not that many people out there that do it. I don't think that they would. They already have switchers that do 4K and 8K. Those are the constellations that are out there. So they're making they're like, if you want 8K or 4K, you'll pay more and you'll get we have those available for you. You can go up to 8K if you'd like. But I don't think they're going to make the smaller ones that are trying to be cost effective. Releasing one of those that is serving 1% of the market, I don't see Blackmagic doing that. I will say I've been doing a lot of 120 frame per second tests, and I am very clear that 120 frames a second is far more compelling than 4K. So, and I'm looking at them on really big screens, like 70-foot screens. so they're, but 120 frames a second is what I'd love to see them go look at harder than higher resolutions, based on stuff I've been doing for the last couple months.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I think they want to sell to the masses, and right now that market isn't there quite yet. I think we're still a little bit early to see a mini in that same form factor and under $1,000, because that's kind of the market where this lives. And if you want to go up the chain, here it is right here. There's the Roland V600 for $8,999. So if you're going to go that route, that's big money. That's a whole other league of switchers. So they're out there. It's just you got to pay the premium for it now because you'd be an early adopter, or as Alex said, go get a Constellation, and then you've got your panel to get as well if you still want the ability to hard punch with real keys and have a T-bar and be able to have MEs and all of that. So the Constellation it went up. So the Constellation is now like $12,000. It used to be under 10. And so if you want 8K, the offering's there. You just got to pair it with a panel to make it have that same kind of feel that you're used to with a Mini.
Alexander?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, would it be nice to have 4K support? Yes. I think the only real competitor is Rhode, which is putting pressure on Blackmagic with the Rodecaster video switcher, which has some really nice features, balanced audio, the ability to put an SD card in there to record. But I think the more important features would be to have better chips inside so that we don't have a Blackmagic, crush issue, have better, full uncompressed YU/Y2 video support over USB, have balanced audio jacks, that kind of stuff. I think these are all things that people are really pushing and asking for. I don't think a lot of people are pushing for 4K. And like everyone else has said, if you really need those kinds of features, you're going to be looking at a Constellation anyway. So I think Blackmagic knows who their target audience is pretty well for these products.
Let's go to our next question.
This one's from the QR code, Kent in Madison, Ohio. I have the latest version of vMix with Windows 10. I just got an error message, invalid class, when putting in the registration key. vMix told me to either reinstall Windows or to try to fix WMI file, which looks hard to do. What are the recommendations?
That sounds like tech support level 1. Guy Cochran, what do you think is the real answer?
Well, I mean, you kind of answered the question in there. I mean, I would listen to the manufacturers to what they tell you to do. If you want to give it a shot of rebuilding the WMI file, though, it's worth giving it a whirl. Depending on how much you've already installed as far as your other apps and how much time it'll take to rebuild from scratch, you can stop the WMI service, rebuild it, and then restart it and see if you can then run the installer again and see if that fixes it. If not, then yeah, it's best to just rewipe that system and start from scratch, and off you go. Good luck.
Next question.
Francis Fry in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Keystone, D-Series, or something else for patch panels?
Alex Lindsay, what's your preference in the patch world?
Well, I want to define whether you're talking about patch panels or whether you're talking about convenience panels / connector panels. So if you are talking about patch panels, I'm using Bittree for most of the stuff that we use. There's a lot of different ones. That's patching from one signal to another, and that's video patching. Those are much more expensive. So but they're designed to patch from one thing to another. And those patch panels we have lots of. And what they do is they really extend your router. So if you have a 40 by 40 router and then a patch panel, you can have lots of combinations without and extend what the router can actually do without a lot of reconnections to things. But if you're talking about a convenience connector, yeah, the D-Series is the thing that we use most of the time. So you're looking for those. I believe that Canary makes D-Series, and those are, and for those connectors, they are, you're looking for, make sure that they're solid connectors. A lot of times there's multiple flavors. So I'm assuming what you want is just some empty connector, D-Series connectors. You're going to put in what you need on the back of those for the convenience panels. I think that we've usually used I believe the Canary ones for most of those things, but D-Series is what we would normally see.
Next question.
Robert Shoji in Los Angeles. Any advice regarding the Elgato Key Light MK2 versus the Elgato Key Light Air for a simple Zoom meeting from an office?
Courtney Gooden, what's your preference here?
I tend to go for something with a little bigger, it depends on how much room you got. The Air is kind of small as far a panel light. It's a little bit broader than just a directional light, but you can see it's about the size of a hand mirror here, and it's shown here with this little desk mount, like it looks like an microphone desk mount that holds it up. I kind of like for even cheaper. This is $129. I kind of like these Newers 15-inch is what I'm using now. They're dual color. It comes with a nice carrying case, and they're 25% off right now. So they're portable. And this one has a little infrared remote so that you can control it. That's missing from the one that I have, so it's kind of problematic to get up and adjust it while staying in front of the camera without having a second person to do it. But if the Elgatos have that, you might go for it. Elgato is a little better built brand than the Newers, but I have not had any problem with my Newers, and they seem to work quite well and are relatively cheap and have travel cases.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, I think that in this class of lights, Elgato really sets itself apart by having a lot of great control. So you open up your iPhone, you open up something else, you can really have tons of control over those lights' color and intensity and a lot of other bits and pieces. So I think that that's really where they've probably some of the easiest to use. Newer is I bought a bunch of those, and they're not as easy to use so as the Elgato ones. Both sets, both the MK and the Air, are probably smaller than I would use for a key light, even for Zoom. So those are not necessarily where I'd go with those. Maybe on a mobile rig, but if I was doing something that I'm permanently set up, I'd probably want something twice as big as the MK2s, and definitely 4 times as big as the key lights. So that would be I'm sure that they would look nice in your office, though. So, but they're a little. I find that those sources, we bought lots and lots and lots of lights over the last, hundreds and hundreds of lights over the last 10 years, and we've definitely decided that about 18 inch by 18 inches is about what, unless it's a travel rig. If we're sending something out, 12 at the minimum, but 18 by 18. Or so is about the minimum we want to send out, because it's just otherwise it looks sourcey.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I have one of these, and it's really wimpy. I mean, yes, you get the controls, but that's about it for the benefit. I would rather take that money and go invest, as Alex was saying, in a larger source, because especially if it's just a single source. Because if you just have one, you could position like this one's up high, and I have an egg crate on mine, and so this I could control soft light, and that's really the hard thing to do with the Elgato Key Light. It just doesn't have the punch, because once you throw on an egg crate, you start to lose some of that output. And then the other nice thing is if you get a third light, you could have that hair light. So ideally, you would have this kind of look, where you have a hair light and then you have key and fill. So getting just one for a single light, it's up to you. I mean, you'll get that look of just one single source, and you won't get the hair light. So it just depends on your budget, how much you want to spend. But I would rather have the cheapy ones that Courtney was alluding to, 3 of those for the price of one Key Light Air. So it's all up to you as to how you want to shape that light and get that look. But there's also some support that you'll need to, stands and whatnot, if you do go down the Courtney route, or if you want some kind of magic arms to really get those lights in position. And as Alex was saying, those are nice to have on the road. So you could take this stuff, like when I go on the road, I have a bunch of little arms that I can bolt onto the hotel desk, or grab a chair, or if there's a light, a torsier type light, I could clamp onto it and move that into position and get my hair light or my background light or my fill light right where I want it. So there's more to the puzzle than just buying one light, or it's a path that you can go down that can get expensive quick. We're expensive friends.
And don't forget, single light photos mostly run driver's licenses. How good does yours look? I know mine doesn't. Next question.
Peter Moore in Auckland, New Zealand. When you stream a live sports event or saved movie from a cable TV company, including Apple TV, etc., do you receive any metadata, WRT camera angles, etc., especially with live, so I could maybe write a program to interpret that feed to different screens?
Interesting idea. Alex, what do you think?
No, you don't get that information. It's all muxed together. You're lucky to get captions. So I think, there's not any metadata being delivered generally.
And certainly not with respect
Yeah.
to camera angles and things like that. That's pretty sophisticated. They're not doing that. Next question.
Peter Rosado in Las Vegas, Nevada. Understanding that the content, some not safe for work, will be thought of differently by people. Panel's thoughts on the production value of the Prof G Pod podcasts.
And there's a link there to it. Alex, what do you think?
I was thinking about more of the content, so I understand, which I think is pretty good. I mean, he has a lot of good things to say. I think that there are a lot of interesting concepts that he brings forward. And I have to admit that when you asked it, I looked up quickly and said, "Oh, I've seen him. I don't know if I've watched the whole podcast, but I didn't look at it as much for production. So I'll let Guy jump in and I'll look at it again."
Guy, dive in.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Scott Galloway. He's actually an instructor at NYU, and I've read some of his books, and it's his knowledge. When I look at this in office hours grading quality, he maybe gets a 5. It's one of those things where you go, hey, is it more important to just get the content out? And I think originally he wanted this to just be audio only. So a lot of times I'm listening to this kind of stuff. I'm on headphones anyway. I'm driving. So to me, the visual isn't as important. It's just the content. And if you go through and click that link to his channel, you'll notice that some of the people like Daniel Pink, he's been on Masterclass. He's also an author. Scott Galloway has access to people that you want to hear from. And so if the production value is going to get in the way because he's often on the road and he's doing these remotely, I think he's using StreamYard or maybe Ecamm or something like that. Something simple. But again, it's content is king, and he's a master. I mean, he is no joke. He's built some big companies and demolished a few. So he's an interesting guy to listen to, and that's what makes it worth it.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, to go back to the production a little bit. So in here, he's doing one in the studio, which is obviously you got RE20s that are well lit. They really spent some extra time on this one. I think it looks pretty good overall. His thing about this color frame, I don't agree with. I guess that's all I would say. And I generally will almost never put a raw frame like this without some kind of border that looks like I meant to do it. And typically in the current style, corners get rounded a little bit here, but you don't have to. But some kind of even very subtle frame usually would be something that people would expect or that a lot of us would kind of go for. You can see what was talked about before. These are kind of more web-based. I'm just going to, and I don't know, this one's 2 days ago. So he is kind of going in a more rough. And this looks like it could be more of a, now this is what happened. This is where things get reversed, where his guest obviously does this a lot and takes it pretty seriously. Oh, I guess maybe his guest is in his studio because it's set up. So this looks like it might be in his studio, and he's actually interviewing from somewhere else, which is kind of an interesting kind of reverse.
From that menu shot you just put up, it looks like he's using those color borders to indicate topic class.
Yeah,
it's a communication form for him.
I get it. I get that he's doing something with it. I'm not buying it. so like that. I get that there's some color, but I find it to be, I guess the nicest word I can think of is garish. I hate that. I hate that look. I don't think I could look at that podcast. I definitely wouldn't put it on my TV screen, which is where I watch like 80% of my YouTube. So, I don't it's not. It just doesn't feel professional. I guess that would be it. And maybe it's primarily a video for. I mean, maybe his discussions are primarily audio, as Guy said, but it's never going to be primarily video if it keeps looking like the way he's shooting it.
There you go. Next question.
This one's from the QR code. Marielle Chusha, Miera, and Wablo's asking, if I use royalty-free music from a paid service on a commercial video, can I keep broadcasting said video even after I cancel the subscription to that service? Am I allowed to keep using the music or assets on new projects? Courtney Gooden.
It depends. Probably not on new projects if you have let your subscription lapse. You might be, it depends on the terms of service of the rights holders, the subscription service for this music. So read that carefully. Some of them have a buyout where you pay a royalty fee per needle drop or per piece of music that you use, and then it's yours to use in perpetually. Some of them do it per edited program. In other words, once you sync it up with some video, then the rights attach. and you can continually play that video without having to pay them more money. Some of them, they vary from service to service, so just read your terms of service. And it should outline in there whether you're allowed to use it after the subscription lapses, or whether anything that you produced while under subscription is still viable without having to resubscribe to distribute.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I'm actually in the market for a new sound effects library because I've got a multicast program coming up that I'm producing that is going to require a lot of sound effects. And so I've been in the mice type of these agreements. And surprisingly, some of the more modern services are starting to loosen up. And they say once you use our content, after you license it or are paying the subscription while you use it, I've seen a few agreements where once you do that, you have the right to continue with whatever you've created after it, and you're licensed for that in perpetuity. That's a nice change from having read a lot of end-user license agreements and a lot of copyright notices on things like buyout music that were much more restrictive than that. So I'm afraid you're going to have to buy a nice big magnifying glass and read the 6-point type at the back of these license agreements if you want to know for sure. Next question.
Big. It's usually 4.
Friedrich in Easterberg, Germany is asking, looking for recommendations for a KVM switch that is switchable through Companion. I am connecting Mac, PC, and Raspberry Pi.
Alexander Knight, can you help him?
I've been so lazy to set this up, so I just want to show you what I have and its capabilities. I have really been enjoying how reliable this Test Smart KVM switches. I also have a HDMI matrix from this company as TestSmart, TESMART. This is an 8-port switch that does up to 4K 30. It has automatic EDID management as well. I just use the USB aspect for switching keyboard and mouse between computers. This one works really well for me. It has RS-232 on it, and it also has an Ethernet jack, so it will accept TCP/IP commands as well. See if I can zoom in. But anyways, the port is on the front there. They have a proprietary Windows-based only application for switching. But again, if you look at the documentation, they can take these commands. Someone has actually written a Companion plugin as well for that. I just haven't tested it, but it looks like it is fully capable and possible with this.
I mentioned the QR code earlier. If you'd like to get a little more involved with the show, you can dive into our Mukana backend and connect with a lot of other people who watch the show and discuss it real time. It's a really fun community, and it's great to be able to talk to other people and share ideas. And even we tend to monitor that during the show. So there's a lively discussion that sometimes we bring into the actual show about other answers from others than just the panelists. So if you want to do that, go to officehours.global, follow the join link, and you will eventually get to how to do that. We would welcome you into the community. It's a great place to hang out. Let's go to the next question.
Jesse Kester from Glendale. Good morning from sunny Riverside, California. We evacuated LA yesterday and thought it might be a good time to review safety and evacuation procedures on production. What do you do to keep your team's equipment and data safe in emergencies?
Yeah, it's a timely topic, and thank you for bringing it up. And our hearts go out to everybody in the Los Angeles basin. That's such a hub of production that so many people are being affected by this. And our thoughts, our prayers, and our hope that everything works out smoothly for you and everyone you care about. Alex, start with your thoughts.
You can't always control everything around you, but generally you approach everything from a safety first perspective in the sense that there's almost nothing that's worth shooting that is going to be dangerous. Like that. I may go on small things that I put my own self in danger, but I rarely do things that I think are going to put other people in danger. And usually we'll pull back from a planning perspective. Now, sometimes things get out of hand, and then you suddenly are in a position where you're not in a safe position. And at that point, you just have to figure out how you're going to unwrap that. There's a lot of different emergencies that are there. I think that this is a reminder. I think I have some friends that have have not lost their houses yet, but are on the edge of some of these fires. And I think that as you see them prepping, and some of them have talked about prepping, they are, it's hard because no one thinks about this or no one really plans for it. Having data in the cloud is important, like all the things that are important to you, having them in the cloud, having the things that are important to you, something you can grab relatively quickly. Having empty, I have family members that may need to leave soon, and they're going out to get, some extra boxes to have them there. So if they get the evacuation, they're kind of putting some things there, but they're not going to tear their house apart. But the boxes are all there, ready to go. And these are like you go to Home Depot and for $8, $8 for those big crates, you get 10 of them for $100, and they're just sitting there stacked together. And if you need them, you can fill them up and get them out of there, in half an hour. You can kind of quickly stack a whole bunch of stuff in there. So those are the kind of things that I think that you want to kind of think about is where that would look and what you have backed up and where you have it backed up. It's a pretty horrendous thing in LA right now. So, but I think it's a reminder for all of us to, really think about, if we had to do this right now, would we be ready to do it? And I think I'm partially ready, but definitely not ready enough. So we're thinking about it a lot for between now and next summer.
And Courtney is the closest among us on the panel today to this, living in Los Angeles. We were talking about that at the beginning when I first saw him today. So Courtney, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Mike, you can hear the sirens now outside the door. I don't know if the noise cancellation is eliminating them, but there's fire trucks going by right now. Jesse, I'm sorry you had to evacuate. I was within a half a mile of a mandatory evacuation last night, so luckily they brought in the helicopters in the Hollywood area on the Sunset Fire and put that out in Hollywood before it. It's mostly out. We're just now, since it started at 6 o'clock last night, we're just now starting to see, I'm seeing on my TV over here, the damage. But as far as your question goes about procedures for evacuation on production, where you may not be at home. If you're at home, last night I was, gathering together all my files that have recently been updated. I have Carbonite to automatically update any of my business files, and several directories on my computer that I use daily are automatically sent up to Carbonite. But that's only done once a day sometimes, or depending upon when things change, it happens not on a regular schedule. So backing up in the cloud is important. I also back up onto an NVMe that I can just unplug and slip in my pocket and walk out the door with. And that's a lot faster than using cloud-based backups. As far as production goes, you want to have, usually in most productions, if you're shooting on a soundstage, the first AD will have a safety meeting at the beginning of the production, and they will point out where all the emergency exits are and which exits you're supposed to use in the event of an earthquake or fire. And it's always a good idea to keep your media in one place, especially your media that's been consumed. In other words, your production, stuff that has production files on it that have not been offloaded or copied or duplicated. Make sure they're in a single place that you can grab all your media files and run out the door. You can always rent another camera, but you can't replace necessarily that stuff that's been shot, and that's worth thousands of dollars. More money than probably the cameras are worth. So grab the media first if you're going to head out the door in the event of an earthquake or something you have to evacuate quickly, or a fire. So that's my suggestion. And if you can't, on your personal stuff, if you're not hooked up to the internet all the time where it's backed up in the cloud, grab your laptop or grab any media that is removable on your laptop and head out with that, because that's probably worth the most amount of money and would be most difficult to replace.
And we often think about the stuff because we're in production. There's a lot of stuff here, but I'm just impressed with the people that I've heard talking who were very glad they had phone trees set up so that even if the cell towers went down and everything else, as soon as they got to any place, they were able to contact their loved ones and close people, at least let them know they were okay. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty as these things sweep through areas. So make sure you keep people close. And Jesse, our thoughts are with you. We're glad that you got away safely. And come back in. And, this is a great community. I'm sure on our communications things, if you need to go back in production or something like that and need some extra batteries or something like that, I'm sure our community will have plenty of people who would be willing to reach out and help you in any way we can. Let's go on to our next question.
This one's from the QR code. Tim Home in San Lorenzo. I see Shure has a SM35 head-worn microphone. What would be a better recommendation for a singer to use to plug into a Shure wireless body pack?
Alexander, you want to start off?
Yeah, so the SM35 is Shure's budget directional cardioid head-worn microphone. It's okay. It's what I call a serviceable mic. You know, if you use them for fitness and you're prone to breaking things, you might not want to buy an expensive one. I highly recommend stepping up to the Duraplex series if you have a bit more budget. There's several $100s more, but man, the sound quality is just so much better. It's a very discreet microphone, and just the sound quality is so much better. It's worth the money.
Guy Cochran?
Yeah, I'd be looking at the models from Countryman for a reasonable price. This is the ISO Max here that I'm wearing, and it does have the red band. So this one's specifically made for singing. So you'll notice in the Sanken line as well, they have the red band and Sennheiser. You have to specifically order them for singing to take these higher SPLs. The H6 is another one. There's also models from DPA, 4066, things like that. But this is the Dolly Parton microphone, and they say this is one of the best sounding headsets mics of all time. So $325. Just make sure that you choose your brand, choose your model of Shure receiver or transmitter, because the pinouts can be different depending on your exact transmitter. So be very aware when you're ordering these things, because there's a little tiny code on these things that tell you exactly what it is, as far as it goes down from color to if it's a cardioid or an omni, and then if it's a high SPL for singing or not.
Alex.
Yeah, and the one that comes up a lot when I ask other folks about this that are working in these areas, when they're looking for bar none, this is the best. I'm like, I don't care how small it is. I just want it to be good. I haven't used this one, so I just want to relate that. I don't know, but I haven't used it. But every person that I ask, say, well, Garth Brooks uses this. So this is the Crown CM311A. But that's the one that comes up pretty constantly. Garth Brooks uses the Crown.
He used to do pretty well in those concerts wearing that microphone.
Yeah,
so
exactly. It's good. It's gotten them a lot of mileage.
Yeah, it's not for stealth.
Yeah, no, not at all.
But I don't think he was concerned about that. Let's go to the next question.
Roz Humphreys in Comox, British Columbia, Canada. One of 4 streams not syncing in Final Cut via timecode is converted to 24 from 23.97 to be same as other sources, being 24 FPS. Is this predictable? Any options to sync timecode?
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, so probably not. This is something that if you're going to change that frame rate, you may have lost the timecode. The LTC probably got lost. Mickey said that, expected behavior production LTC is thrown out of the door when you do a frame rate conversion. I think that you're going to have trouble with that. It wouldn't be accurate anyway once you've made that change. So that's part of why it's thrown away. This is also why a lot of us, while we use timecode, are often maniacal about making sure that the audio from the event, a multi-camera event, goes into all the cameras in one channel, so that we could use audio if we had to. I think that's now. If the time code is not, Roz says, thanks for taking my question on the panel. I'm encoding my 4th stream, 2997 24 in ProRes with compressor. It still would do the same thing. The time code is present but not recognized syncing using time code, right? It just may not see it as the same as the others. Because probably the time code is still related to the 2997. It doesn't know what to do with what it has. So I think that you're going to probably have to use audio or do kind of a hand sync to pull those together, where you're really looking at multiple angles and trying to get 2 that are close together and get them. I've definitely got it to the frame. It just takes. I'll say if I have 1 camera out and 3 cameras in, I can probably sync this by eye in maybe 5 minutes. Don't spend too much time trying to figure this out. You can look at it, and what you'll look for is when you think of keyframing, people will do things. Let's just say you have a talking head. They're going to do this with their hands, and there's like one frame that they'll be in a certain position that you'll be able to see on 2 different cameras, and it'll be in a very specific angle or whatever. It's usually at the end of a movement. It's not when it's moving towards something, but when it stops and comes the other direction. Oftentimes, you're going to see exactly that position, and that's what you're looking for, is the end of those what we would call a keyframe. Right at that keyframe is where you're going to you can use it to line those all up if they're continuous tracks. Of course, if it's lots of small tracks, that's why we always wish we had time code. But if it's one long record for each one of these, it wouldn't take me more than a couple minutes to put it to get it working.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, you have a mess in your hands. I don't know why you would shoot at 24 these days unless one of your elements is shot on celluloid film at 24 frames per second even. These days with digital cameras, everyone's pretty much shooting, if you're shooting theatrical, maybe. But if you're shooting for streaming, for television, 2397 is the frame rate for all production that you would probably want to stay in if you want to stay in that 24 and not 2997 area. You have to do 0.1% pull up to get the speed back to be correct, to stay in sync. And then you have to throw away the time code because the time code stamp, unless you have your conversion software knows about the time code and corrects the time code stamps to match. Depends on whether your time code is just in metadata in the file, or are you using LTC that's on an audio track. That makes a difference. If you're using LTC, it might work, might not. I would abandon the time code like Alex said and just use eyeballs to sync it up. And you may have to, sync it up at several points because it's going to drift if you sync it up at the head and it's not quite perfect. It'll drift at 0.1%, so you might have to pull it up every now and then across a cut to get it all back in sync, or to sync each cut in individually if you can't pull it up in time base to match.
And if it does drift, it's not a big problem to fix it. You can go Final Cut's math is really precise. You can go in and literally do a speed change, a custom speed change, and make it 1.0035. And if that's a tiny bit off, make it 0037 and see if that does. Once you figure out that formula, it's easy to apply it to multiple clips down a timeline. So it's really not hard to fix. It just takes some effort. And I agree with everything that was said before about it's important to get these things right, and thankfully there are a lot of precision math tools built into Final Cut that should let you take care of this pretty easily. Next question. Oh, Alex, you wanted to come back in on that one.
All I was going to say is that every time I've started to do that, where I start scaling things by 0.001, lots of bad things happen.
Oh, really? I've had great success with it.
You're like, now you're just kind of swinging around trying to figure out what's going on. So, So anyway,
once you
let us know,
do
Roz,
the transcode to a
consistent
consistent sample rate, that's always worked for me. And I've done long programs with lots of cut-ins, and they've worked. So anyway, next question.
Feedback. This is from Hazmat Gajar in Cape Town. Feedback on question in office hours regarding prompter people monitor dying. Courtney recommended MDHX to flip video horizontally. It worked on a generic monitor and saved $700 for replacement monitor.
Oh, Hazmat, we're glad it worked for you. Alex, you had a comment?
Congratulations. Yeah, I mean, getting the same monitor back from prompter people would probably be the most expensive solution. So I'm glad that then you'll find the MDHX got a long shelf life. I have ones that I bought 10 years ago. I still use them on a weekly basis. Well, maybe bi-weekly basis.
Guy Cochran?
Yeah, this was amazing to watch unfold in the I Need Help section of the Office Hours Discord. I was in the middle of another project, so I couldn't type it all up, and Aaron Cody, who was on a couple weeks ago showing DaVinci Resolve, came to the rescue and actually shot a quick video with just his phone, just saying, hey, here's the down, up, cross, here's where you flip it. And he actually hooked up a monitor and flipped the text. And I'm doing the exact same thing. I have a prompter. I'm using an MDHX to flip it. And I meant to just make it an interim thing, and it wound up being a permanent thing. So it's been sitting here for almost 4 years now. But yeah, for as many times as we've told Hazmat to spend a bunch of money, this time we actually saved you money. So
yay!
That's a cool thing.
It's a first.
Winning.
We're slightly more back in balance with you, Hazmat. It's great to hear that. Let's go to the next question.
Neil Avaleto in Boca Raton, Florida. Do you have any comments on the new NVIDIA 50 series, which uses AI to accelerate rendering by computing only 1 out of 4 frames and generating all other frames in between with AI?
Guy Cochran, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I saw this come across my LinkedIn from one of the head researchers over at NVIDIA, where he says, it's cool specs, but do you fully internalize what Jensen said about graphics, that the new card uses neural nets to generate 90+% of the pixels for your games? And if you read through this, one of the guys says, yeah, I always turn that stuff off because it's laggy in my games. It makes it feel like I can see this kind of stuttering. So I'm interested to see what the 5070 in particular, because I was about to buy a 4090 and that thing was over $1,000, and now you're getting twice the performance at half the cost. So $599 now for what used to be the performance of the 4090, which is still in the stores right now that you can buy as the fastest hot rod on the NVIDIA line. And now you're if you look at this this graphic, it's $1999 for the 5090, the 5070. Without the TI is $549, so just amazing value. So I'm excited once these start shipping to pick one up and go plop it in my PC and see how it handles vMix in 4K, because that's a great price for a high-end graphics card.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, the first thing I would do is probably very quickly take ocean scenes or simulations of water and so on and so forth. What AI has trouble with is lots of detail changing all at the same time. Compression in general has trouble with this, but what I probably throw at it is things that are very complex images that are organic, that are not moving in a reliable way, and see how it does. And if it does great, then it's a great card, and if it doesn't do great, then maybe not. So that's but I think that's where it'll get challenged. When it's only doing 1 out of 4 frames, you give it a bunch of chaos, and that's the question: is can it handle chaos well? Trees flowing in the wind, that kind of thing. I've got some what we call Widowmaker files that if someone wants me to send them once they have a 50 series, let me know and we can see how they look.
Alex, I'm sorry, Courtney Gooden is next.
Yeah, it depends on whether you're gaming or whether you're just rendering these 3D files for use as visual effects and so on, where latency doesn't really matter that much. The gamers out there, have that twitch factor, and they want to gain the highest advantage over their competitors that they're playing with online. So the rendering speed is important, and the frame rate is important that it can deliver that rendering speed at. And a lot of gamers, insist on 120 frames per second or higher to deliver that stuff, which, this may give you that if you have that twitch factor involved. The accuracy, as Alex said, would probably not be great if using AI to render it. But, accuracy isn't that important if you're gaming. It's speed that counts. So it depends on your application completely.
Next question.
This one's from John Wallace in Pontiac, Michigan. I have to edit a long clip into 500 short clips for training an AI model. What is the best software to do this and quickly export my 500 individual files?
Alex, do you have suggestions for him?
Yeah, I think that what you probably want to do is take this into Resolve and go into Resolve and cut. The key is you got to cut them all. You still got to cut them all up, I assume. So somebody's going to have to go through and decide what the in and outs are. If they are all scene based, Resolve can actually cut all of them based on scene changes, if that's what you want. But if they're not scene based, then you'll have to have someone go in and just with the slice tool and slice them all out. From there, Resolve has a feature when you export it to export all clips. You can export them all individually, and so you can just take all of those clips and export them all as individual clips, and that should work for you.
Yeah, Final Cut has the same kind of cut it up, but I
don't think Final Cut has an individual clip export though. I don't.
Yeah, there's a little sub program that'll do it for you. But the thing for me is that somebody's going to have to do something, and to cut, even just tap X. I've always found putting markers in was faster because it didn't delay me as I was watching in 2X. And so I'm trying to remember, somebody did something, I think it was maybe one of the guys at Intelligence Assistance that had something that turned markers into cut points through XML manipulation. So, John, I'll look into that a little and see if I can get back to you.
But there is a scene detection already in Resolve, so you wouldn't have to write anything or do anything else. You just throw it in, hit go. If it's scene detection, it'll just go.
Yeah, that was the question. Is it random? Oh, by the way, if it's algorithmic, if it's like you need to cut every 10 seconds, that is pretty simple. You can actually build a little init that does that for you. So, hey, it's worth talking about. Ping any of us, and we'll try to help you get through this. Next question.
This one's from me in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. Some filmmakers I follow are calling this kind of reckless spending bad for the industry. Why is Apple spending $200 million on a season of a TV show?
Alex, what do you think?
I think they think it's bad for the industry because everyone's getting used to incredible production value. so like I think I think that this is really a problem for a lot of folks because they don't get those kind of budgets, and you get used to watching Apple. I have to admit, you get used to watching. Some other folks are getting somewhere in the vicinity, but if you get used to watching Apple programs, I will admit that they are effectively making everything else look a little less than. When I go from Silo to or some of these two other ones, I don't think other people notice it, but man, do I feel it. Like I just feel like we're dropping off a ledge, because they're spending, Netflix spends an average of $75,000 a minute and Apple spends an average of $250,000 a minute. You're going to end up with something that looks shinier, and I think that is, that's what's happening. I think that the people who are complaining about it are people who can't do it. And I have friends and relatives that have worked on these Apple things, and there's a lot of questions about creativity. There haven't been a whole lot of questions about cost. Now, Apple's talking about making spending less, but this arms race is again, it's hard for others to keep up. I think that's what people are complaining about. I think Apple is if they don't blink, if Apple doesn't blink, they've talked about like, oh, we're going to pull back on the purse strings. But if they don't blink, they're slowly going to become what they are everywhere else in the industry, which is the high water mark of a lot of things where, you get to see things that are at least film quality, if not better, but they're series. And I think Apple's done that fairly effectively. They've had some misses here and there, and they've spent a lot of money on. But Apple has the money to spend, and so they can lose a lot of money doing this. I think that the biggest thing I see when people talk about these productions is that they talk about how Apple lost a bunch of money on this or they did whatever. But the bottom line is when you're a streamer, anything you make on a movie release is bonus. Like you made it for streaming, and then you're offsetting your cost and getting free PR by putting it in the theater. So when people talk about that, you're like, okay, guys, do you actually understand how the business works? I don't think you do. Like when you put it out and they talk about this being a failure or that being a failure because it didn't sell as many tickets in the theater. Who cares? All it did is it cut your production costs by a lot, and it got you a bunch of free PR. And then you put it in your streaming package. And so I think that a lot of people who write about the industry haven't actually been in the industry and definitely haven't written any checks in the industry to understand the business models that they're working inside of. And so they're just making stuff up. So, but I think that the filmmakers that are complaining are mostly complaining because if Apple keeps going down the path that they're having, like everything else that Apple does, it's going to be hard to keep up, and they can't, people aren't going to want to watch the same stuff. And the problem is that they're getting eaten up by the other side because YouTube is pretty easy to watch too. And it may not be of the same quality, but the verticals that it serves and at the quality level, they're getting sandwiched between really, really high quality and really, really very vertical content. And that makes everybody in the middle feel the pain.
Also, I'll just note Apple's in the content consumption device business big time between the phones and the iPads and the Vision Pro and the rest of that. Their ecosystem is built around managing and handling content. They are also now with their movie production and the rest of these arms creating content. So I can see a company with that much financial strength wanting to be a big player in the entire vertical and horizontal side of content creation, distribution, hardware to consume it upon, and the rest of that. I think are thinking bigger than the old model of we're going to put this on celluloid and show it in theaters. That's not their game, I don't think. So who knows? Let's see if we can sneak one more in.
Douglas Carmichael, in light of Meta's content moderation changes in the U.S., have any of you planned to reduce your engagement with or leave Meta platforms?
Alex?
I am not reducing any of my consumption of the Meta platforms because I almost don't consume any Meta content as it is.
What's the number below zero?
There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere for me to go. So occasionally someone will send something to, I don't have any Meta apps on my phone, not because I'm afraid of people tracking me, but because I don't, they drag my battery down. Whatever Meta does, it drags my battery down, and so I won't put any Meta apps on my phone. And as a result, if you send me something on Instagram, it has to be like when I'm in a computer and when I'm logged in, I might be able to see an Instagram. I check Facebook about once every 2 or 3 months and go, "Oh, sorry, I don't spend much time here," and then respond to everybody and give them my email. I just don't have really a lot of interaction with the Meta tools anymore. And I feel so much calmer because of it.
Courtney?
Use Zoom and Discord and other avenues to communicate with your family and friends, and just say no to Facebook and Instagram.
All right. Thank you all for being a part of the show today. As always, our thank yous go out to our major tripod constituency. First and foremost, all of you who watch this show and contribute your questions, our producers. We thank you for those questions. Without that, we don't have a show. So you really do drive the agenda here and how long with your votes we spend on each topic as we go through the day. So thank you very much. The next constituency are our panelists, the people who come in here every day and help us answer questions. For everybody who's ever been a panelist on the show, and for those of you who might be interested in the future, we truly appreciate the input. This is people who spent a lifetime learning things, giving away their knowledge for free as best we can. And the last and never neglected constituency is the back-end crew, assembled all over the world virtually, who put this show on by taking their time and effort to make this possible for you to learn from. We truly appreciate that. Our clock traversal today, 58,000 miles. That's 93,000 kilometers, or 458 million bananas for scale. We'll be back tomorrow.
Alex, I'll tell you who cares about whether Apple makes money in the theaters is the A-list stars that they handle. I had this answer, but it wasn't called enough. Yeah, that's how they're negotiating those contracts with getting those A-list stars for the prestige, is they have to pay them big bucks because their former contracts had a percentage of box office, which is unknown since they're not tracked on their viewership on streaming. So, those that get paid on how popular a picture is, like the big A-listers, are asking for a lot of money up front. That's why they're spending so much money on these shows. More later. Yes. Have a good day, everyone.
Have a good day and stay safe.
Keep the home fires
Take
out.
care.
Yes. Keep them burning.